All right, Xavier fans, we are back. It has been a while. We're not exactly talking hoops today, but I figured it was time. There's kind of some big news in the Xavier world. And quite frankly, I don't know much about it. So I got a man in here who does know a lot about it. And it's good just to see your face, Paul Fritschner. We haven't talked in a while. How's everything going with you?
It's great. Fantastic. It's been a great month here, and baseball's been exciting the last few days. So everything's rocking and rolling, Rick. Good to see you too.
Yeah, sandbagging a little bit. Congratulations are obviously in order. Big news in your life with you getting engaged. I know Xavier Nation is obviously very happy for you, as am I. So congratulations on that as well.
And, I actually have to thank the baseball team for that, because my excuse to get Lizzie to Xavier was saying that the away game that the baseball team was playing that weekend on Saturday was the field was unplayable. So we had to go to Xavier to pick up the broadcast equipment on the way to Jeff Ruby's for dinner, which we did not end up going to Jeff Ruby's. We went and had a little party with some of our friends and everything. So I do have to give a shout out to baseball for being a big part of my month of May.
Well done. Well done, Paul.
Yeah.
All right, so there's the backstory. Let's talk about a little bit about this baseball team who just won its 4th Big East championship. They punched their ticket to the NCAA tournament for the 5th time in program history by beating UConn 7-3 in the second game on Saturday. And I guess that's where I need to start, Paul. Kind of break this down, how it works for the fans who don't understand the Big East baseball tournament. Only 4 teams actually make it to Prasco Park to play in this tournament, right?
Yeah, only 8 of the Big East schools have a baseball team. So 4 teams make it to the tournament. And then they play it. If you're familiar with college baseball, it's the same format as the regional, which is the first weekend of the NCAA tournament, where it's double elimination. So you play the 1 and 4 seeds on Wednesday, then you play the 2 and 3 seeds. Then the losers play each other. One team goes home the next day. The winners play each other. The loser of that game plays the winner of the loser's game. And then on the final day, the one team only has to win 1 game. The other team that came out of the losers bracket has to win 2 games. That's the same format that Xavier will have to play in this upcoming weekend in the first round of the NCAA tournament. But this weekend, Xavier won their first game. UConn won their first game. They played each other in the winners bracket game on Thursday night. Xavier won that game pretty decisively too. That put Xavier into the Big East title game, having only to win 1 game on Saturday afternoon. And that's a spot that Xavier hadn't been in lately. It took a lot of pressure off themselves from having to win the 2 games on Saturday, which is what they've had to do the last few years. And that's pretty much the reason why they have lost the last few years. So Xavier has been in the Big East championship game the last 6 tournaments that they've qualified for. They missed the tournament in 2018. There was no tournament in 2020, but they have played for a title in 16, 17, 19, 21, 22, and 23. So if they're in the tournament, they're probably playing for a title. They won it in 16 and 17. They also won it in 14, but they won it in 16 and 17. They missed it in 15. Basically, if they are in the tournament, they're going to be playing for the title. Now, it's a little different because, like I said, it's not like the ACC. It's not like the Big Ten or the SEC where there's a ton of teams in it. You got a crazy road. You just got to win 2 games to get to the title game out of the winners bracket. But for Xavier, the big challenge the last few years has been that they have had to come out of the losers bracket. Last year, they had to win the second day, win again on the third day, then win 2 games on the final day. No team has ever won 2 games on that final day since the Big East has realigned. Xavier came out of the losers bracket in 2014 and won the title, but that was because I think that was the year that Fox only had the window for 1 game. So they scrapped the second double elimination game, and they said it's just a 1 winner take all game, and Xavier beat Creighton in that game. But for the people asking about why this game wasn't on FS2 yesterday, I saw a lot of questions about that. The tournament got moved up. It used to be Thursday to Sunday, but because of weather, the last few years, we keep having to fight rain and everything else. The tournament has to be done on Sunday because the selection show is on Monday at noon. You can't push it back to Monday. You have to decide your champion on Sunday. Big East was sick and tired of having to worry about the rain and everything else. They built in the rain day on Sunday, but by doing that, they forfeited the national TV window and played it Wednesday to Saturday this year. It was all on Flow Sports, and it was a ton of fun. I mean, Xavier, the difference between this Xavier team and previous Xavier teams that have come out of the losers brackets, this team really has pitching. A staple of Xavier is that they can score a lot of runs. Xavier's always had the offense going back a decade. Since joining the Big East, Xavier's always been able to put up a ton of runs. But the really, really good Xavier teams, when you think of 16 and 17 guys that back then, like Zach Lowther got drafted, Garrett Schilling got drafted, Greg Jachnowitz got drafted. They also had Trent Estelle in those years. Those were really, really, really good pitching rotations. They have that again this year with a guy in Brant Alazos, who was an all Big East first teamer, then Ethan Bosacker, who went almost 130 pitches in his start on Thursday night against UConn. And then you have Luke Hoskins, who had a great second half of his season. It was able to give Xavier a start on Saturday. So all those things really worked in Xavier's favor. The bullpen was really good too this year for Xavier. The pitching staff is really what separates these Big East teams, because a lot of these teams can score, but if you have the pitching, that's what's going to really set you apart.
How did they get that pitching staff? Was it good recruiting? Did they get some transfers in, or was it really just developing guys that were kind of on their way the last few years and have finally reached upperclassman status?
Yeah, so Brant Alazos, who pitched on Wednesday, I keep wanting to say Thursdays, I'm so used to that being the first day of the tournament, but Wednesday this year, he pitched in the first day against Seton Hall. He threw 109 pitches in that game, and that's pretty standard for him. He goes over 100 pitches every time he goes out there. He's not a flamethrower. He is a transfer from Walsh into Xavier. And the other thing that they did was these guys were healthy this year. So Ethan Bosacker, who is a senior this year, he was hurt last year, missed the entire season. He's a flamethrower, healthy this year. He gives you that. He's been the ace for the team through the season. But then it was Brant, who, like I said, was all Big East first teamer, who ended up getting those Friday starts as the latter portion of the season came around. So they'd really just built up the staff and more experienced guys too. Justin Lohr, who was the closer who got the final outs yesterday, he's only a sophomore, but he came onto the scene really strong last year, had a great freshman season. Now as a sophomore this year, just continue to improve. Have an innings eater in Jonathan Kelly, who is pretty reliable too. It's just, I think Billy went out and just got some guys that he knew he could really rely on, get those innings. And in a field like Hayden Field, if you're unfamiliar with Xavier's Hayden Field on the campus of Xavier, it is one of the most notoriously hitter-friendly parks in the entire country. I mean, it's almost a running joke around the country, especially around the conference, but coaches hate coming to Xavier to play. So they always say, I don't know how Billy O'Connor, Xavier's head coach, I don't know how he coaches there for a season, because we hate playing here for a weekend. It's only 310 down the lines. I mean, you have, we're broadcasting games where it's like a fly ball and we're going, oh, a fly ball to the left. And then all of a sudden it just drifts and it falls 5 feet over the fence. That's a home run there and nowhere else.
Yeah, with these metal bats and the technology they have, guys that at this level, I mean, yeah, they're going to hit it 310 more often than not. I kept seeing, you guys did a great job broadcasting, you, Mike Schmaltz, I know John Fanta was involved. I kept seeing the name Jack Hausinger pop up. I saw he is the most outstanding player. Tell me about what he did this week, and also any of the other names that really jumped out to you.
Yeah, so Jack Hausinger is, Fanta called him Mr. Xavier. He has been around this program for 5 years. He used his COVID year. Nobody has worn the Xavier uniform in any sport more than Jack has. He holds the record for most games played in baseball, which obviously baseball plays the most games of any sport or most events, anything. Jack was the Big East preseason player of the year. The shortstop of this team, rock of this team, leader of this team. But the regular season didn't really go the way that I think Jack was hoping at the plate, at least as far as the stats go. And Billy kept telling us all season, like, hey, look, I know the average might not be there, but he's walking. It's like the scene out of Moneyball. And what does he do? He gets on base. I mean, his on-base percentage is incredible this season, and it's because he's walking. I think he walked about 60 times this year, something like that. I don't have the stat in front of me, but his walk number is crazy. And all he kept doing all year was walking. He'd get on base. He's the leadoff batter in the lineup. So as a leadoff guy, he just kept setting the table. And he was hitting 188 coming into the week in the Big East tournament. And you just kept thinking to yourself, and we did going into it, he's going to come up with the clutch hit. We didn't know it'd be going 10 for 15 with a triple to win the game in the 9th inning. But we just had this feeling that Jack was going to use the experience that he'd built up over the last 5 years, and that it was going to pay off at the right time. And it did. 2 guys on base yesterday. We thought off the bat it was going to be a home run. He triples into right center and drives in what ends up being the winning run for Xavier. But yeah, Billy talked a lot about him and what he has meant to this team. And you really can't say enough about these guys that have fought through so much with COVID and everything else. And they got that season canceled after halfway into the year. They find out they're not able to finish their season, and he comes back. And so guys that have gotten drafted through Jack has been there. Jack has been the rock of this team. And so to see him come up big in the way he did, 10 for 15 this week with, I forget how many walks he had too, and the runs scored. It was just an incredible week for him.
It felt like every time I logged into Twitter, there was a new clip of Jack Hausinger coming up, and you guys were making some call about him, mashing the ball somewhere. So it was a heck of a weekend for him. Were there any other names that really stood out to you in terms of their production?
Yeah, I would say more so just from the wide picture. If you're looking forward to this weekend in the regional, Matt Dupre was an All Big East first teamer, a phenomenal catcher for Xavier. He played. He did have the error yesterday, the throwing error in game one. But outside of that, I mean, he is somebody that he hit second, and he has again had a great year. Goes to show, in being the All Big East first team guy. And then Brandon Alazost, the pitcher, I already talked about him. He doesn't overpower you. He's that kind of slow throwing lefty, but he's the top strike thrower in the country. I think he only walked 8 batters all season. He struck out almost 100. So he's not going to walk you. The reason he's so effective is, even though he doesn't throw very fast, the batters know that he's going to throw strikes, so they have to swing. They can't get into a 3. Some of these guys that throw like mid 70s or low 80s on a fastball, if they walk 30 guys in a season, the hitters might know, we can lay off. Eventually he's going to wear out. He's going to walk us. The pitch count's going to get up. And that's not – his pitch count's going to get up, and he's going to come back out there. I asked him before the game yesterday, before game one, I said, are you available today? And he goes, well, hopefully not, because if I'm available, that means I'm probably throwing in game 2. But, if they need 60 pitches out of me, sure, go ahead. And he ends up throwing 177 pitches combined between Wednesday and Saturday. I mean, he's – very quiet, very to himself. He just sticks to himself. He goes and sits on the bench and just kind of keeps his head locked in the game. He's not somebody that's going to be running up and down the dugout fired up. But, to look ahead to this weekend, you're looking at really good starting pitching performances out of Brant and Ethan Bosacker. And then at the plate, Jack will lead things off. You have Matt McCormick, who is a transfer in. This is a great story. One little just human interest story for Matt McCormick. McCormick, he was out of baseball, completely out of baseball. He had given it up. He had played at West Virginia, had committed to Tennessee, but then it just didn't end up working out. Got out of baseball. He was working at Ace Hardware, and he was friends with Tyler DiMartino, who has been phenomenal for Xavier, also a transfer from West Virginia. And I think McCormick was one test away from joining the police academy and just giving up on baseball forever. And then he kind of got that itch. He's from Illinois. Billy O'Connor kind of knew the area and the recruiting and everything. And he said, yeah, you know what? Maybe I'm not done yet. He got the itch again. DiMartino reached out to him, got him to Xavier, and he replaced Luke Franzoni, who got drafted by the Angels last year, who was the top home run hitter in the league. And McCormick hit a 482-foot home run at Creighton, which is the ballpark record at Creighton, which means something because that's the home of the College World Series. So just a little, fun little nugget if you're trying to connect with this team going into this week. You're probably looking at, I mentioned it on the Musketeer Report board, but you're probably looking at Terre Haute for Indiana State if they end up being a 1 seed. You're looking at maybe Lexington for UK, or you're looking at Nashville for Vandy. If you're looking in the region, those are the 3 teams in the region. Louisville didn't have a good year this year. They won't host. But if you're looking around here and where they might be able to travel to, or they just get sent somewhere else, they're not going to be a 4 seed, though. They're not going to be just the token 4 seed that gets in. They'll probably be in the top half of the 3 seeds. I doubt they get a 2. I'm not 100% on that, but I would say probably you're looking at a 3 seed somewhere in Lexington or in Nashville.
So the selection show is Monday at noon. Is that right? How's this kind of set up the rest of the week if people want to follow this?
Yeah, it's set up. It's Monday at noon. I believe it's on ESPN or ESPN2, one of the two. But it'll be Monday at noon, and then the regional it'll either be a Thursday to Sunday regional, or it'll be Friday to Monday. And And it'll be, again, the same way that it'll be set up, just like what happened this past weekend in the Big East tournament. They'll play the one game on the first day of the regional. The winner of that game will play the winner of the other game. So if Xavier's a 3, they'll play the 2 seed. They'll play the winner if they win the game of the 1 and 4 seed, then go from there. But Xavier has played in the regional final game in 2016 and 2017. They did not get to the super regional. So it goes regional, super regional, then the College World Series in Omaha. So if you know nothing about this, they play the regional weekend, which is 4 teams. It's hosted by the number 1 seed. So there's 16 host sites. So like Lexington would be a host site, and they just play it at Kentucky. And Kentucky would be the 1 seed. You'd have an automatic bid be the 4 seed, and then there's the 2 and 3 seeds mixed in there. And one team makes it out of each regional. Then they get paired with somebody else to play in the super regional. That's a best 2 out of 3 at the higher, or I guess, how do we say this, Rick? Is it higher or lower seed? If you're a 1 seed and there's a 2 seed, what's the 1 seed? Are they the higher seed or are they the lower seed?
Yeah, I mean, I guess technically they're the lower seed, right? But like if you say lower seeded team, you're usually talking about like a 15 or 16 seed, right?
Yeah.
So I guess it is higher seed. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I don't know. It doesn't matter. We're idiots.
The better team would host the super regional, and then from there, the winner of that super regional would go to Omaha to play in the College World Series. So, so that's what it'll look like. It's a 3-weekend event. The College World Series takes a while once you actually get there, but the regional will be this weekend, then the super regional would be the following week, and then the College World Series from there.
Great stuff. Well, Paul, thank you for taking the time. I know you've been crazy busy the last week calling all these games and working and a lot of stuff going on in your life. That's why we really haven't been getting together to talk about basketball much, because you've been constantly working with this baseball season and your job and everything else. So we will definitely get back to that very soon. There's a lot to talk about with the Xavier team as we get closer to summer workouts and the start of practice. Yeah,
so hopefully if it ends up being in Lexington or Terre Haute, I think Mike and I are going to go and do a radio broadcast of the game. If it's Nashville, I don't think I can make it down to that one, but if it's Terre Haute or Lexington, I think Mike and I will be there. So we'll keep an eye out for that.
All right. Well, great stuff, Paul. Thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it. And hopefully that gave the fans a little bit of an insight to what's going on here with the baseball team as they make their way to the NCAA tournament. Should be fun to follow this coming week.